Yeah, I'm still not convinced that kid in the fuzzy hat isn't my kid. Yeah, anyway, speaking of my kid, I'm looking for his stash. No, for me!
Hey!
Jesus! All right, son, you gotta stop doing that.
Alright, for the last time, I'm not your goddamn son!
All right, cut the bullshit. Where's your stash?
Oh, that stash is in the ceiling. I had my share of it a few minutes ago and woo!
You son of a bitch.
I'm not your son! What was I here for? Oh, yeah, right. We need to talk about.
Hello, this is Duke from Duke It Out, and welcome to another episode of We Need to Talk About. In my latest video, I ranked the card for this year's Revolution pay-per-view. And, spoiler alert, the 60-minute Iron Man match between MJF and Bryan Danielson not only stole the show, but it might be my favorite match of 2023 so far. MJF retained after going to a 7-minute overtime, and plenty of fans of the American Dragon, including myself, were pretty shattered. But we didn't know that Bryan would shatter our hearts even more on Dynamite, when they showed a backstage promo that he cut right after the physically damning match, where it made fans have to question the future of Bryan's pro wrestling career. So what we need to talk about is, what's next for Bryan Danielson? Before I begin, please make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more great wrestling content.
Found your stash. I'm kind of hungry.
Found my... Oh, that motherfucker! If you weren't able to catch this week's episode of Dynamite, Danielson got really emotional in his backstage promo. The Go Home episode before Revolution showed MJF cut another amazing promo discussing the real-life separation with him and his fiancée, and how Bryan is taking his wife and children for granted. And after the match, Danielson admitted that he was right. He discussed losing feelings in his arms after the match, and it made him terrified of the fact that there could be the day where he couldn't play with his kids anymore. And Bryan closed it off by saying that it was time to go home, and walked away. We already had to hear a retirement speech from Bryan back in 2016, so when Bryan gets emotional, it brings the same reaction to all the fans. But this still seems like it's going to lead to a break from pro wrestling. But could it also mean he could have a run in another promotion for the time being? I don't think it would be this immediate, and I think we won't see Bryan in WWE for a long time, or even till a potential Hall of Fame induction. But Bryan really did become a staple to the company throughout the 2010s, and he reached to the status that he'd always be beloved at the highest levels. So it wouldn't seem crazy to think that he would want just one more run there before he fully retires from in-ring competition. But I don't think it's too likely at the moment. This doesn't seem too crazy. When Bryan was on his way out of WWE, one of the ways they tried to convince him to stay was to let him wrestle a few matches in Japan. But obviously, nothing came from that, and he signed with AEW a few months later. But Bryan has expressed his interest in wrestling in Japan and being able to fight some of New Japan's best in AEW already, like Minoru Suzuki. But since his injury last year cost him from having a match against Zack Sabre Jr. at Forbidden Door, it wouldn't surprise me to see him pop up in New Japan for the summer. And I would love to see him get that dream match with ZSJ, or a 6-star classic against Okada, and my most hopeful, Danielson versus Shibata. I'd be worried they're both gonna die, but at the same time I want to see them wrestle so bad. Japan didn't seem too crazy, and sadly this doesn't either. There's already been major concern for Bryan competing, due to his many concussions that have caused him to have seizures in the past. And while we love getting to see more phenomenal matches from him, I think most fans would agree that we care 10 times more for his health and safety. And Bryan is a man that clearly likes his privacy and quality time with the people he loves. So it would make sense that after he was able to settle down following the brutal matches he's had in AEW so far, staying settled wouldn't seem like too bad of an option. Regardless, he will always be hailed as one of the greatest of all time, and wanting to spend more time with family is something that anyone could understand. And the more I think about it, the more I fear of that announcement coming pretty soon. Bryan Danielson has been my favorite pro wrestler for years, and watching that backstage promo made me feel sad for the selfish fan reasons, but also because of how much I understood what he was saying. It's the core of why reality is balanced into some pro wrestling stories, because sometimes it gets to the point where it will take over the person and the wrestler. And while I think we will see Bryan Danielson in the ring sooner than later, and I'm gonna lock in his first time back will be in Japan. But I and probably many other fans just wish for Bryan to enjoy as much of his quality time with his family as he can. And we can wait as long as we want. Even longer if Bryan ends up deactivating his Twitter account. So that was another episode of We Need to Talk About. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, and duke out your opinions below in the comments.
When they tell you you can't, you can. And when they tell you don't do it, that's when you should be amplified to do it fucking most. It's Goathy. I be moving slow and steady. Don't think twice about me not being ready. The thoughts are heavy, sinking to the abyssal depths already. But money I see, I do not envy. Paper is nice, but it's not the first target clearly. Ayy, living my life with some purity. Rather be